All right, Donald Trump there's a great deal of interest and appeal and controversy, so you would think that given all of this and signing the big pledge yesterday, he was doing so because he was scared or because he's reading poll numbers that are scary. Apparently not the case, and for his Republican critics who have come on and tried to now introduce attack heads of their own, Jeb Bush comes to mind. Look at this. Donald Trump had a favorability when he first announced back in early August of 16%. That favorability has since doubled. That means a lot of his negatives have been cut in half. In fact, he's actually on the higher tier of favorably regarded presidential candidates.
He is, as you know.
Anthony Scaramucci joins us right now. He's a big backer of Scott Walker. And I would imagine, Anthony, on the phone now, this has got to perplex you a little bit. What is going on, and how does your guy, these other more conventional candidates, respond?
Well, listen, it perplexes me, but probably everybody. But I think that the thing about Donald Trump that I think is so interesting, he's been on television, Neil, for 15 years, very high-rated show. He's got the highest name recognition. You could add everybody else together. And so I do think that the summer season is about name recognition. And I got to tell you, the guy's very popular. He's on the air 65% of the time relative to the other candidates. But when you line Donald Trump up one-on-one versus the other candidates, it gets a little bit different. Ben Carson, for example, right now is polling 55% versus Donald Trump at 36. Now, he's ahead of my candidate, Scott Walker, in that poll. But I do think 70% of the Republican Party does not want Trump to be the nominee at this time.
At this time, you're right. But even you and your numbers guy, you would have to be surprised that in the 7 weeks or so he's been at this, he's not apparently a passing fad, that he's gaining some traction. Like I say, his negatives are down, his positives are up. And you're quite right to point out the Carson Soul comparison, where he doesn't favor so well, but he beats all the others. So I'm beginning to wonder whether there's more traction to him than we know and appreciate, and how your guys, some of the other guys, should respond.
Well, I mean, and again, there's no question. I'm not going to refute any of that. But what I am going to say is, as the fall comes together and you start to see the track record of guys that have political executive experience versus Donald's experience as an entrepreneur and a television star, I think the American public and I think the Republican primary voter is going to say, wait a minute, we've had inexperienced people in this job before. We're probably going to need to go with a political CEO that needs to deal with people that are not on their payroll, Neil, like the American Congress.
Well, no, you raise a very good point, Anthony. But the reason why I begin to think that this is bigger than even the Donald, and this populist rage is bigger than what's going on in the Republican Party. I look at Bernie Sanders and the wrath on the left, and I look at what happened to Rahm Emanuel, where he had to be ushered out of this town hall meeting he was in to try to explain the cuts in services that have come because of kowtowing to the teachers' union and protecting their pensions and the rest. And I'm beginning to think that this rage across the board is palpable, and I would think for conventional politicians, very, very real and worrisome, because they look like they're part of the problem, not the solution to that problem.
Well, yeah, and all of that is true, which is the reason why I'm with Governor Walker, because you want to talk about going up against the teachers' union, talking about putting real reforms in Wisconsin. If you look at Governor Walker's record as a political leader, I would bet you that most of the Trump support would gravitate to him if they figured out who he was. And I think that's
what's
one of the
happening,
big issues
because he seems to have suffered the most in this. I don't know if that's fair or right, or even justified, but he has gone from being the guy to beat in Iowa to being like in the middle of the pack in Iowa at that. What happened?
Well, listen, I think it's early, but I think you'd have to say if you were doing a diagnosis, certainly there's a Trump phenomenon there. But remember, you've got field operations. It's one thing, Neil, to get a call from Gallup. You're in your nursing home. You get the call from Gallup. You say you want to vote for Trump. Now you got to get that person into the bus and over to the voting booth. Okay, and so I think our guy is going to have a tremendous field operation. He's from a neighboring state.
All right.
And again, if it's a protest vote, and you want somebody that's actually fought and won, you'd have to go with Governor Walker. You'd have to say, wait a minute.
One guy, one view. You're right. We'll see. And you're always right, and it's very, very early. Always like having you, my friend. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, Neil.
You too, Anthony Scaramucci. All right, well, this might be a news flash to some of you, not to our Charlie Gasparino. Millennials admit they are self-absorbed. They admit they are self-absorbed.